So what is so special about impedance? Impedance can sometimes be confused. And let me again take a very first principle based approach. Ohm's law, when we mention Ohm's law, right, one of these two equations come to our mind. V is equal to IR or V is equal to IZ, right? And a lot of students kind of look at resistance impedance because if you think about it in a non-technical sense, impedance is something that is impeding your way, right? It is obstructing your way. When you talk about resistance in a non-technical sense, resistance is also an obstruction, impediment, right? So loosey-goosey terminology understanding lingo will lead to loosey-goosey appreciation of the subtle differences between them. And when we look at it from an electrical engineering, circuit analysis, power systems engineering standpoint, the differences are not subtle. Actually, resistance is a component of impedance, right? Because resistance is the real part of impedance, and reactance is the imaginary component of impedance. Yes, there are scenarios where resistance and impedance would be equal, but that would be the case when we have zero reactance. In other words, if we have just a resistor, then the impedance would basically be equal to the resistance. Okay, but if we have inductive reactance, capacitive reactance, or a combo of inductive and capacitive reactance, then we cannot simply ignore the value of X. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that resistance is independent of the frequency. And you can see that impedance, when I use Ohm's law, Z is equal to V divided by I, right? And it will, for a purely resistive load, it will be simply equal to R because X is equal to 0. Now, whatever I want to do with the frequency, increase it, decrease it, remain, make it constant, right? Mess around with it, it will have no implications for the value of resistance because it is independent. Why? Because it's only when we talk about the capacitance where we end up having omega in play, right? And since omega is in the denominator when the frequency is equal to 0, right? So you end up having for the capacitor Zc is equal to R plus 1 divided by j omega C, right? When I reduce this all the way to 0, the denominator becomes a 0 and the numerator basically is a 1. So this factor goes to infinity and we have an infinite impedance. And if I take frequency to infinity, the denominator basically becomes infinite and 1 over infinity is equal to a 0. So the impedance is basically going to be equal to 0 if we have a purely capacitive load. In other words, if the resistance of that capacitor is 0, then we are switching between infinite impedance and a 0 impedance. When we are dealing with the reactor, when we are dealing with an inductor, which is a fancy way of calling a reactor, sorry, an inductor, we have j omega L. So if I bring the omega to 0, the Z is going to be equal to 0 for a purely inductive load, right? And if I increase this to infinity, it will basically become infinite. So impedance is a little bit deeper concept, and it is, I think, in our best interest to get this sorted out and the concept worked out and the differences clarified at the FE electrical and computer exam preparation stage. Because when we get into the PE power exam preparation, if you are wasting time revisiting the fundamentals and the basics, you're going to miss the big picture because some of the concepts are really advanced and this is just a side note, right? Doesn't mean that it's not important, because if you start making these mistakes, you're going to struggle in the more advanced concepts. But the point is that having a really deep understanding at FE level for some of these basic building blocks is crucial. Now, the impedance triangle, I'm not sure if you're in your undergraduate coursework, if you've come across it. The triangle that is a bit more popular or commonly used, and the one that is included in the FE reference handbook and the P power reference handbook is our power triangle, where we have the complex power with the angle theta over here, the real power over here, and the Q over here. Now, interestingly, the angle theta that we see over here, okay, and the angle phi or theta that we're seeing over here are related, okay. And the impedance triangle, what it is trying to capture is the composition. It is capturing the makeup, okay, of our load, right? So if the load is a black box, okay, if the load is a black box, which contains a spaghetti of resistors, spaghetti of inductors, and capacitors, a bunch of these inductors, capacitors, resistors, and so on, okay. Now, if a smart electrical engineer goes about it, does a thorough analysis, looks at the terminals, right, connects a voltage source, and measures the current, right? If I if I claim that the total impedance, and we have a practice problem coming up, the total impedance for this, or the driving point impedance, that sometimes it's called, or the input impedance, it's called sometimes, right? Looking into this network, right? And we do something like this for the Thevenin and Norton analysis. This is an I, by the way, right? Pretty cartoonish I, but you get the idea. Can be calculated by simply taking the ratio of the voltage to current. And we do it repeatedly. In advanced concepts such as soil resistivity testing, ground resistance testing, the apparatus that we have in pepower that we come across, Schlumberger array, we have follow potential method and things like that. Essentially, that's what we are doing. We take the ratio of the voltage that is applied to the current that flows, and we call it, resistance over there, right? But this is practically your impedance, okay? Now, this will be the impedance. The point I'm trying to make is that this impedance will have a magnitude and a phase angle, and I can decompose it as Z cosine theta, the real part, and the Z sine theta, and see where I'm going with this, right? Because R, if you look at this, is equal to Z cosine theta, which is a real part, and X is equal to Z sine theta, the perpendicular, which is the imaginary part. And this angle over here is the impedance angle, which can also be the power factor angle. So all of these concepts are interrelated, right? Now, if you remove this black box and you say that I actually have a motor over here, it's not just a black box, I actually have a motor, right? And if you have a limited, even very basic understanding of power systems, you'd be like, Wasim, I can tell that this motor, or let's say if it's a generator, this motor or generator will have very low value of R, but a very high value of X. In other words, its imaginary component XL is going to be the more significant and dominating factor. And that's why those of you who work in the industry have probably come across a term called X over R ratio of your induction and synchronous machines. X over R ratio for generators typically is greater than 10, which means that the inductive reactance of the generator or the motor is 10 times larger than its resistance. So your R is teeny tiny, right? But your XL is very large, right? So as you can see, all of these concepts are interrelated. And then we can comment on whether this particular load is going to present a lagging power factor or a leading power factor. So surprise, surprise, if we have 1 over j omega c type of load, which is capacitor, it is going to act as a source of real power, reactive power, and it is going to basically result in leading power factor. And power factor is a completely different beast in itself. And I go really deep in terms of explaining, the lagging power factor and its association with the negative power factor angle, and the lagging power factor, sorry, the leading with the negative and the lagging power factor with the positive power factor angle. Okay, but this is an interesting concept that I just wanted to present to you. And for the record, the reference handbook pepower as well as the FE electrical, they don't contain any details about it. And quite routinely in my program, we dive deeper to understand the concepts more comprehensively. Okay, effective impedance of a circuit is essentially depending on the arrangement of the circuit blocks, right? If you have a bunch of impedances that are connected in series, impedances are going to add up like this, right? And if we have a bunch of impedances that are connected in parallel, it is basically going to add up like this, the reciprocal sum. So let's do a very quick practice problem. The question is asking you to calculate the driving point impedance. It's a fancy way of saying calculate the input impedance of the circuit at a particular frequency. Now, if I had just a capacitor, just a resistor, frequency information, whether it was a million hertz or a 0 hertz, would have been irrelevant because resistors are completely independent of frequency. But we have a cap here, so we have to take the frequency into consideration. So the sum of these two impedances or the two blocks is going to be equal to ZR plus ZC. So for the impedance of a resistor is equal to simply R. The impedance of a capacitor is 1 over j omega C. And it's a plug and check question, right? And then you go through this calculation and notice that there is a negative sign over here. This negative sign is important because what's going to happen if I am to draw, not to scale, or I don't know what the phase angle is over here. We can calculate it using the calculator, but let's just recognize that sine angle theta for a negative angle, right, results in a negative value, right? So remember that this part is actually plus JB, right? A is equal to 25, which is the real part, and B is actually equal to minus 19.89, right? And J is J. So that's what's making this whole thing minus J 19.89. And this guy is actually equal to sine of angle theta. Angle theta has to be negative. Are you guys following me? For the imaginary part to be negative, the angle theta has to be negative. And let us start piecing this puzzle together, right? So we have an angle theta which is negative, right? So if this is my positive x-axis, angle theta is negative, right? Remember the base of the x-axis value is our real value, correct? And you can see that the x value, jx, is actually negative. So this guy is actually pointing downwards, right? So this is my xc. So when we are dealing with the capacitors, when we are dealing with cap banks or capacitive loads or the loads that have their imaginary component negative, the phase angle, the impedance angle, the power factor angle is negative, but capacitors result in a leading power factor. Okay, and for that we have to review the power triangle. And the power triangle says that S, P, and Q, right? If I have an inductor over here, for example, inductor is a sink. It absorbs reactive power, right? And using the passive sign convention, whenever we are consuming real power or we are consuming reactive power, the sign is positive, right? So notice the value of Q is positive, R is positive, positive x-axis, positive y-axis. So from the standpoint of load, we are consuming real power, we are consuming reactive power. And that would be true for XL, inductive, right? But when we are looking at a load which is capacitive in nature, primarily overall, right, then the Q is going to turn negative, phase angle is going to turn negative, P still remains positive if there is a real component to it, right? But the interesting thing over here is that our Q is related to XC now, right? And check this out, this XC component is actually negative. And from this, you can tell that now using the passive sign convention, since my Q is negative, my capacitor is actually a source of reactive power. And that is what allows it to do power factor compensation. Okay, none of these concepts, guys, are in isolation. Everything is related to everything else. And the fact of the matter is that if we have developed our understanding not using first principles, we are going to struggle every step of the way. So in the last few minutes, hopefully what you have learned, the concepts that I explained using first principle gave you a different perspective, a different view of things, and you can just extrapolate this, that if we are going through the entire FE electrical and computer exam specification from math, probability, stats, ethics, engineering economics, properties of electrical materials, all the way to software using first principle approach, and then passing the FE electrical and computer exam comfortably, moving into the P power exam specification and working to the P power content in depth, not only will you be setting yourself up for success in terms of getting these exams out of the way in the first attempt and very comfortably, you will also be building confidence along the way. And if you didn't have the best teachers, or you rushed through undergraduate coursework, or you never really had time or energy or focus, or maybe even the intent to basically understand things inside out, look at these programs as your opportunity to basically get the job done, right? And set your career up for success. I like to tell engineers these days that your competition is not only other engineers at the moment. You actually have to carve your career, right? Develop your career, have that in-depth understanding where you're not only competing with other engineers, right, with your credentials, with your experience, expertise, but you're also competing against the big AI, right? So your value proposition for an employer has to be that, okay, he or she is a problem solver. They know things inside out. They can cross connect concepts and get the job done. But if we are traveling and skimming the surface all the time, and we have shallow understanding, it will not allow you, and I've seen this over the course of my 10, 12 years of experience as a practicing engineer. There are type A engineers, when they are presented with a problem and they are evaluating, not even coming up with a solution, but systematically when they're evaluating the problem, they're so confident in the positions and assumptions that they're making along the way, that it is so grounded in strong foundational understanding that you actually can sense it, right? It's the type of an energy, right, that you can tell that this guy or this girl really knows what he or she's talking about, right? And then there are other types of engineers who are always hedging their bets, and they'd be like, okay, this may happen, or this may happen, or that may happen, because what are they doing? They're always leaving a door open. Correct? Door open for what? To exit. Door open to be like, oh no, yeah, you're right, I was wrong, but I told you, like, I wasn't 100% sure, right? So you encounter that, and even when dealing with any professional for that reason, a general contractor, for example, a car mechanic, for example, a doctor, right, an accountant, a person who knows what they're doing will never hedge their bets. Or even if they do, they'll just be like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on, but I might need to do a little bit of additional testing just to sort of verify my thesis, right? And they're always, another thing is that they don't, they're never shy of learning and continuously, building their knowledge base. If any of this resonates with you, and if you want to look at these exams not only as a stepping stone, but to really enhance your understanding, and most of you are here after having completed your undergraduate coursework, you have spent tons and tons of money, time and effort getting your degrees, right? And if this slight bit of icing on the cake can help you really connect all the dots, right, then I would like to invite you to my programs, the FE Electrical and Computer Exam Preparation Program and the P Power Exam Prep Program. Feel free to visit my website, studyforfe.com. I currently have a 10% discount that's going on, and I will onboard every single one of you one-on-one on a Zoom call and develop a game plan based on your scenario, whether you failed these exams previously, whether you're just getting started, whether you are out of school for 10, 15, 20 years. You'll find all different types of stories on all the different type of platforms, on LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, Amazon, where people have tagged me, have basically vouched for this program, and we'll get the job done. Okay, so thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate you guys joining the call and attending this session. And maybe I'll see you in future sessions. Okay, thank you. Bye. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. On a weekly basis, I'm creating content for FE Electrical and P Power exam preparation. I also discuss topics related to electrical engineering with a focus on power systems engineering. If you'd like to learn more about my FE Electrical and P Power exam preparation programs, please visit my website, studyforfe.com.